There's death, there's destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome to this very special episode of Hard Lens Media. There's a lot to talk about and address. Shout out to our viewing audience on Can TV as well. As we have said, and we're wondering of when it was going to happen, it has been announced that Biden is going to be running again in the 2024 election. Biden, being 78, going on to 80, will be the oldest serving president in U.S. history should he be reelected into office. However, this calls into the question of what his overall legacy will be and what the Democratic primary will look like due to the fact that as it currently stands right now, there will be no debates whatsoever. Now, joining me for this discussion is somebody who's been speaking truth to power. She is a contributor to the, again, outstanding show, Revolutionary Blackout Network, and so much more. She has collaborated with a lot of people in independent media. She's a speaker of truth to power. Give it up for Sabrina Salvati, who, again, shout out to you, Sabrina. You always are here on our show, and we're glad to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us this early in the morning. Hopefully you have a nice, tasty beverage to get you through the madness that is, which will soon be the 2024 presidential election cycle.
Yes, I have a cup of tea. Thanks so much for having me on, Kit.
Mm-hmm. So looking at this now, you were one of the few people in independent media covering the announcement of RFK Jr. And as it stands, or at least how it was, at least before the announcement, Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. were the only two announced candidates, and people were waiting in wings for the idea of, well, will Biden make his announcement? Will the Democrats hold him back, or will somebody else pick up the mantle of being the establishment front runner? So what I want to ask you before we even play this trailer of Biden's announcement, what are your overall thoughts on how this election is going to be turning out due to the fact that, again, as stated before, there are going to be no debates whatsoever, and we're seeing already all the media dismissing any of the Democratic primary challengers?
Right. I think 2024 is going to be wild, Kit. I think it's going to be a crazy ride. Okay. So I tell people to buckle up. I think what needs to happen is I think that it may end up coming down to independent media hosting some type of debate between those primary candidates. Obviously, the issue that you run into there is that Joe Biden is not going to come on to independent media. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a big debacle. But I think, we predicted this. We predicted that this would happen. I've been saying this for a while. Ever since Marianne Williamson announced, I said that Joe Biden does not have to debate a primary challenger. And I think some people are just now realizing that after that announcement came from the DNC. And this is especially crucial because the reason why someone like a Jesse Ventura was able to win is because he was able to get on the debate stage. Mm-hmm. So imagine if Bernie Sanders wouldn't have been allowed on the debate stage, right? Like, he didn't win, but still millions of people wouldn't have heard that message. So I think it's going to be very difficult for RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson if there isn't a primary debate, but we expected this to happen. Now, I will say I did cover RFK Jr.'s announcement. It was local for me. He was here in Boston where he announced, and I was actually surprised. There were a lot of people there, more than I expected to be. I was expecting maybe 50, 80 tops. But it was pretty full, and there were 3 overflow rooms for other people. You had to register for the event. So all these people were registered. But I think that based on what I saw, people were very excited about him running. People already had their signs and they were cheering and chanting. And I think some of the issues that mainstream media has with RFK Jr., the people who were there that day do not have those issues. Almost everyone that I spoke to said they are there to support him because he's running on an anti-war message. That was the big one for a lot of people. And I think, I really do wish he was running as an independent. And if I have the chance to talk to him, I will tell him that you need to run as an independent. Look at what the DNC is doing to you right now. But I think if you were to look at the field right now, I would say he probably is the best candidate in the Democratic primary based on his policies, so to speak. Now, I did also see it was just the other day that Afro Man announced he's running as an independent. So it's really interesting. I think 2024 is going to be a pretty wild ride. And honestly, I think Joe Biden is going to lose, to be honest with you, in the general.
Well,
We'll see.
let's actually pull this up here as well. So first, shout out to a good friend of the show and of your show as well, Case Study QB. In regards to recent polling data, too, and this is from Fox, Democrats on voting for Biden in 2024, there's 81% probably or most definitely, but voters who want Biden to run in 2024, 26% of all Americans want that. So with that being addressed and said, let's look at this announcement here. Now, this is going to probably boil a lot of people's blood. And I know, look, Sabrina, if there's any point in time you want to pause or correct the record, because there's one incident so far in this video. When I first played it, I said, okay, wait a minute. This entire video announcement is nothing but pure, unfiltered propaganda. And they're going to be talking about January 6th of all things, because somehow that was the end all be all of democracy. I don't know if you got that memo, Sabrina. I don't know if you got that memo, viewing audience, but apparently this is what happens. Our democracy is at an end because, I don't know, January 6th. January 6th is the end all be all. So let me go ahead and pull this video up for all of our viewing audience. And folks, please try and keep your blood pressure low, because it's just, brace yourselves.
Freedom.
That's how it starts off. Freedom.
Oh dear, no.
Freedom. Here's Grandpa again. Freedom.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred.
That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy,
This shouldn't be a red revolution.
to protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it.
Just like the kids in cages.
Right.
Just like the fact that, again, cannabis is still registered as an illegal substance nationwide, even though many states have voted to have it legal at the state level for recreational and medical use. No one talks about that.
But around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make.
So, Sabrina, remind me, what happened to Roe v. Wade? Does anybody know? Under his administration, it's still around, right?
Yep.
Oh, it is. Are you sure? Roe v. Wade's still around?
Oh my God. Who made this ad? This is awful.
We're already 48 seconds in. Okay, folks, 48 seconds in, and there are so many issues wrong. Gee, well, let's talk about Social Security and what's happening to that wonderful institution under Biden's watch. Again, it's all propaganda. Nothing fundamentally changed.
Banning books and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America.
All right. Sabrina?
Well, I'll answer his question. He said, do we have more freedom now or less freedom? We have less freedom because it was under his administration that Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also a couple other things here, too. Look, under his administration, again, Julian Assange is at risk of being extradited here to the United States. Now, of course, that was going to be happening under Trump as well, but Biden decided to institute it. Biden and his administration are on board with silencing whistleblowers and going after anyone who is leaking information, especially at the behest of the corporate press. You have, again, a massive amount of internet censorship. You have this administration trying to silence and get rid of TikTok of all things, because what? It's a Chinese social media app that's doing what all the American social media apps are doing, and that is taking your private data. That's right. So if you use Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it, your private data is being taken away from you too and being used by third parties, the same way TikTok is doing that as well. So in other words, Biden is instituting more and more of his own hypocritical policies. Is there anything you want to add in here, Sabrina? Because again, it is downright insulting to think that this individual, Joe Biden, who has continued on with a lot of Trump's foreign and domestic policies, is talking about freedom when that's not what we've gotten at all under his 4 years.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I just think that I'm thinking about the Restrict Act that they're trying to pass. Like, our freedom of speech is worse under his administration. There's so many things that I feel like have not improved when we talk about freedom. So that may not be the best message for him to have in this ad.
And again, too, look at also what's happening in regards towards the criminal justice system as well. More Americans again are being incarcerated. It is a serious issue in regards towards what this administration is all about. And the thing is, when we hear Biden speak, this looks like a weekend at Bernie's. They're propping him up, they're making him sound coherent. But if we look at all the videos of him on social media, he's like a wandering old senile senior citizen. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, especially to people who are elderly watching this show, but look at Biden. Is he really capable of being the commander in chief? Who is making all these executive decisions? Not to mention, we're in this ridiculous war in Ukraine. We're at risk of the nukes flying and mushroom clouds in the sky. And when that happens, nothing's going to get rebuilt.
I know we're good and decent people.
Oh, God.
I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country.
Thank you for choosing us.
Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights.
So there's Biden finally marching the civil rights movement, even though he's like, what? How many years too late? How many years too late? How many years too late? Again, this is the same Joe Biden who said he did not want to have his white children going to school with black children, who said that he's against busing and desegregation, who gave a eulogy to Strom Thurmond. The same Joe Biden who worked with Republican segregationists. The same Joe Biden who was against Roe v. Wade from the very beginning when he was just an up-and-comer in Congress. This is the same Joe Biden who has not one but 8 accusations as it stands right now of, well, harassment and abuse towards women. People don't talk about the same Joe Biden who was on board with the crime bill to make the prison industrial complex for what it is. This is the same Joe Biden who was talking down to Anita Hill.
Yep.
Same Joe Biden who made credit card debt or student debt what it is by siding with the credit card corporations, and also went joyfully in with the war in Iraq. So, folks, this is who he is. It's who he's always been. And I have to give my tip my hat off to the Democratic Party and even corporate media for presenting him as this friendly old grandpa who just loves ice cream and so much more.
Right.
And this is our moment.
Okay. They're trying to be. I only can handle so much upbeat and uplifting music for so long. All right. your analysis, Sabrina, because we've been covering elections since the midterms. I know RBN has been doing phenomenal work talking to so many activists and organizers on the ground who are carrying all the weight. Because let's face it, after Trump was defeated, a lot of the great activist movements and organizations seem to have died down and everyone went to brunch. The floor is yours, Sabrina.
No, it's incredibly true. I think that for me, I've seen a lot of people say they don't want Joe Biden to run again, but then they also say, well, I guess I'll vote for him because I don't want to get Trump again. People still have Trump derangement syndrome. So some people are voting for him out of fear, as if there are no other options. And it's really interesting to me. I was talking to someone the other day and they didn't even know that Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. were running. And I figured by now that would be known, because they have been mentioned on mainstream media. But I really do feel like Joe Biden's going to lose because the people are seeing that Joe Biden can't make a speech, can't get through a speech correctly, can't string a sentence together. I don't know what they are giving him to help him get through these appearances that he's having. But it's very clear that Joe Biden is experiencing cognitive decline. And who's to say that during his second term, he may have to leave office because of this, right? That means Kamala Harris will be your president. And I don't want Kamala Harris.
Well, the thing is, so many people are cheering that Kamala is still with him in the campaign. So it's quite clear that the team is still together, which is a very devastating situation for the Biden campaign. And here's the reason why. During her 4 years, Harris has been hemorrhaging staff members from her team. Her staff and the Biden staff have been at each other's throats. They're not working together. And I'm pretty sure you've covered this as well, but we've covered it where Biden is disappointed in Kamala being his vice president.
Right.
So this is like I don't know, a divorced couple that has to hang out together, even though they don't want to. So it's completely uncomfortable. It's complete, and I have to ask again, when the Democrats start pushing Biden and they're not going to be having any debates, you know who's going to be up there front and center. It's going to be Donald Trump. And the thing is, okay, if there's not going to be any kind of Democratic primary debates, will there be any kind of general election debate? Will Biden be ready then? Are they giving him enough, I don't know, some kind of medicine or concoction to make sure he's still coherent? Because every time I'm hearing Biden speak, he's slurring, he's stuttering, he's walking off stage, he doesn't know where he's at, and he's making all these weird comments and statements. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this on social media or not, Sabrina, but some wonderful madman of a genius put together the U.S. presidents fighting off against a zombie apocalypse. And that Joe Biden, even though it's voiced by an AI, sounds way more coherent than the actual Joe Biden.
I have not seen that. I have to check that out.
It's frightening and beautiful at the same time. AI art and ChatGPT. It's a wonderful advancement of technology, but it's frightening of how AI can make things look realistic, and then also how it can capture somebody's voice. You mentioned about Biden losing. Now, I've said this in 2016 when the Democrats nominated Hillary Clinton and leaving the Wells Fargo Center, I came down to the conclusion that's going to be 50-50 in 2016, whether it's going to be Biden, whether it's going to be Hillary Clinton or Trump. And I was telling a lot of people, hey, there's a very good chance Trump can run away with this, that Trump could get elected into office. And I lost a lot of good friends because of that statement. And, I keep on repeating the story, but this is something that really hits my heart even to this day. I got a private message from a friend who was upset because I said I was going to vote for Dr. Jill Stein. And it was an article from some mainstream media outlet. I have to look for it again, but it was titled "The Rise of Hate Groups and the Return of the Ku Klux Klan Under Trump." And my friend wrote this: because you're voting third party, you support this.
It's never because you vote third party, you're supporting the Democratic candidate. It's always you're supporting the Republican candidate. You ever notice that?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you said that there's a good chance Biden can lose, and the thing is, I know online the anger and the madness of the vote blue no matter who sycophants, and yes, even Republican voters are going to be going all in with their own madness too. But I'm what I find very concerning for myself, and I think for everyone in the independent media, is we're going to be the only ones who have seen how this will play out and how people are still brainwashed into voting Democrat or Republican. Can things fundamentally change? I know Nick and CJ, who were your two colleagues on Revolutionary Blackout Network, were talking about creating community groups and organizations, building a real ground movement across this country to help build up communities. Apologies. To help build up communities all across. Can this be done? Because I think a lot of people have this derangement syndrome of voting team red or team blue. And I thought things would get better, but they haven't. And that's what's concerning me, is that people are now really dug deep because they're afraid of the orange Cheeto, or they want Biden because they want to go back to sleep and not worry about the problems in this country.
The majority of Americans are asleep. They think that is the only thing they can do is vote, is go to the ballot box. And this is not me to tell people not to vote. But what I am telling people is that you need to be prepared to do something else that's going to give people more immediate relief, instead of just hoping that voting for someone is going to, make that happen. Because even if the person that you voted for wins, that doesn't mean they're going to do what they said they were going to do when they're running for office. And this is why a lot of us end up frustrated, right? So I think people need to be organizing within their communities, doing mutual aid, helping each other, whether it's, giving someone free childcare, people babysitting. I mean, daycares are very expensive nowadays, right? So people need help with that. People need food. People need clothes. If you can teach something to someone for free, do that. People need to learn financial literacy. This is one of the things that I'm going to be doing here in the Boston area. People need to learn about different alternatives to higher education. Like, these are the types of classes that people actually pay for. We can do these things for people for free. And I think that's a big part of the problem, is everybody's sitting around waiting on a hero. And what I've tried to get across to people is that no one is coming to save you. People are going to be careerists. We thought the squad was going to save us. We thought Bernie Sanders was going to save us. Like, none of these people, once they get in, they are beholding to the powers that be, which is corporate America. And until you break up that, you remove money from politics, we're always going to have this problem. This is why people that have good intentions, when they run, when they get in, they don't do anything. So I think people really have to stop waiting for Superman, so to speak. And they need to figure out how they can help people in their communities. They can all work together. But in order for that to happen, you have to talk to your neighbor, and you can't brush your neighbor off because they voted for someone that you didn't like. And that's what mainstream media has been actually successful at getting us to do. They've been getting us to turn on our neighbor because they voted for Trump, and Trump bad, or Orange Man bad. And so there goes your idea of community.
Agreed. After seeing that trailer play, even now, just seeing everyone get hyped up about it, I can't help but think that maybe people want to brush aside even all the scandals surrounding Joe Biden. Look, I understand people being afraid of Trump. I get it. I don't want to see Trump get reelected into office. I didn't want to see him get elected in office in 2020, and I sure as hell didn't want to see him get into office in 2016. But he is not the problem. He contributes to the problem, but he's not the architect of the system we live in. People like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, everyone who's part of the DNC and RNC establishment, Turtle Boy Mitch McConnell, you got Lindsey Graham, all of these individuals who've been in power for decades, who have never once stepped aside for another generation, who've been doing insider trading. These people have made our lives miserable. If Americans understood just what Reagan, Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama have done, they'd be screaming bloody murder. We lost the ability to have health care in this country, affordable education. The people who caused our economic collapse are still out there living their best lives, and our politicians are doing insider trading. And then if they get kicked out of office, they got a nice cushy job as a lobbyist or working with their donors waiting for them. Right. It is sickening to know that they have gold-plated health care, whereas if all of you watching right now, if you have a medical emergency or, God forbid, a horrible ailment impacting you or a loved one, you could face medical bankruptcy, which is one of the leading causes of homelessness in this country, and that is we don't have health care, and medical bankruptcy is impacting millions of us. I assumed, and maybe I had believed that maybe it wouldn't get this bad, but I think social media has intensified it so much to where people who want to scream the loudest think they're correct. Going forward, go ahead, take it away, Sabrina.
This is very true. You know, a lot of these problems, a lot of the economic problems that we have right now, other than the fault being capitalism, a lot of this goes back to Ronald Reagan. And people have to understand that it was Ronald Reagan who implemented trickle-down economics, right? He said that if you have the wealth at the top, it'll eventually trickle down to people at the bottom. But that never happened, right? So we saw that did not work well. How was someone like Ronald Reagan able to win in mass the way that he did? Ronald Reagan won almost every single state in this country. We haven't seen anything like that during my adulthood, but he won almost every single state. And part of that was because of the fact that some people were not happy with the fact that Jimmy Carter, the way that Jimmy Carter handled the Iran-Contra deal. Some people weren't happy with that. Some people weren't happy with the way the economy was under Jimmy Carter. So here comes Ronald Reagan, who's supposed to be this all-American guy. And people want to talk about experience, and they say, well, RFK Jr. doesn't have the political experience. Marianne Williamson doesn't have the political experience. I want to remind people that, remember, Ronald Reagan was once an actor. So you had someone like him come in with this Make America Great Again message, which is where Trump got that from. And he was able to win almost every single state. And so a lot of people embraced him. He served 2 consecutive terms. And it was after his presidency where the economy started to have those issues. And this is part of the reason why, because of his economic policies, this is part of the reason why our generation, we actually are not making what we should make in reference to wages compared to what our parents made at our age. This is part of the reason why everything changed after that. So I think people, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. I think people really need to go back and revisit that and see how things changed, how people were able to pay for college in the 70s and in the 60s and work a part-time job to pay for their tuition. After Ronald Reagan, those things changed. So the wages never adjusted for inflation. And I think that's a big part of the problem. So even when people tell me that they're not a Donald Trump Republican, they're a Reagan Republican, and I'm just still like, economically, that's still worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's what I think is interesting too, because when I speak to some of my friends who are liberal Democrats, right, and when they tell me, well, look, we can't have Trump because it's going to lead to fascism. We can't have Trump because he's implementing all these horrific crimes. We can't have Trump because he is the worst president ever. He is Hitler reborn. To which I have to say to people, especially those that don't like Trump, we've had genocidal presidents before. I mean, under under George Washington, even good old Abe Lincoln, the Native Americans were being exterminated. And that was going on for quite some time before the Civil War ended. You had African Americans who were considered 3/4 of a person. And this was given a thumbs up by, quote unquote, the most enlightened men to ever walk the foundation of America. Okay. You had many elected officials who refused to acknowledge Black people as human beings, who gave a thumbs up to the extermination of numerous tribes. Yes, I get that Trump's a bad person, but we've had genocidal presidents. I forget how long it was in the Nuremberg trials, but when many of the Nazi war criminals were being addressed of, oh, well, how could you do this final solution? How could you set up all these concentration camps? What were you thinking? Well, I think one of the German officers or one of the people who was running it said, well, we learned it from the Americans and how you handle the Native American question. I mean, we have done this before. We've had presidents and people in power that are worse than Trump. And I think the fact that everyone keeps on saying, oh, this is the Hitler of our time. This is the Hitler of our time. Okay, well, that was said about George Bush Jr., and he was rehabilitated when he was dancing with Ellen DeGeneres, and Michelle Obama's giving him hugs. So I mean, mark my words, Trump's going to be rehabilitated too, and it probably won't be Ellen DeGeneres, but somebody will be dancing alongside him, and there's going to be another controversial president, and Trump's going to say, that's such a bad guy. When I was president, I never said things like that. And that's what's going to happen. It's just how long can this thing keep going on until Americans wake up? Unless this is a game that people want to play with themselves in order to make them feel relevant in a world that is understandably out of their control. I am concerned. I was hoping that this election cycle would be fun and entertaining, but there's always that phrase of be careful what you wish for. And I think I got my wish, and it's not looking good. I don't want it. I want to give you the final note. Sabrina, is there anything that maybe our viewing audience can take away from this? What should we be prepared for, to keep an eye out for? Will corporate media continue to, will it continue? Will it get worse? That's what I want to ask you. I want to give you the final word before we end this segment.
I think that people have to understand that the game is rigged. The system is fixed when it comes to electoral politics, right? So you have to put your focus and your efforts more on things that you can actually control. We don't have control over the electoral process. We just don't. We can push and fight for, ending corporate money in electoral politics. We can fight for that. We can push for ending Citizens United, like things like that. But that effort has to come from the outside, and we would need masses of people to do that. And then you also need people that are in Congress to help you fight for that, because they're on the inside and legislation would need to be passed for that. So I think that you have to stop looking towards politicians to be your hero. You be your own hero. What are the needs of people in your community? How can you help them? How can you guys work together to get these things accomplished? Even when we look at something like healthcare, there are people, like elderly people, that can't even go pick up their own prescription medication. That's where something like mutual aid will come in, where you would go pick up that for them and drop it off to them. So I think you have to understand that the entire political system in this country is bought and paid for. That's why you don't see third-party candidates debate. After Ross Perot, that was a wrap. This is why they make it really hard for third-party and independent candidates to get on the ballot. This is why someone like Bernie Sanders, who was polling number one, was unable to win, because the DNC had already decided that they can pick candidates in a back room if they want to. They rigged it in 2016 for Hillary Clinton instead of Bernie Sanders. So I think you have to get that through your head. And I know it can be disappointing to hear that, but I'd rather you hear the truth than to sit here every election cycle thinking this time is going to be the time that a progressive is going to get through. And I'll tell you this, another thing. If one of those progressives actually does get through, like a Ro Khanna, so to speak, because I don't consider Ro Khanna to be a progressive, but he does. Even if he were able to get through, then you need to know he's already turned on you as a voter. He's already decided that he is going to back those corporate interests, and that is how he's going to get in. He'll run on a progressive message, but he's going to back corporate interests. So anybody who's a progressive that is, or says they're progressive and they're running for president, and they win, you need to already know that they've already sold out.
You know what? Thank you for brightening up my morning, because I was feeling pretty depressed after watching that video clip and so much more. So perhaps maybe it won't be that bad for the 2024 presidential election cycle. As a final question for our viewing audience, where can they go to learn more about your work? Where can they follow you online? Because obviously, if you're not following Revolutionary Blackout Network, there's something wrong with you. And I suggest that you check out the entire crew. Where can they go?
You can find me on YouTube at Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can also find me at my channel, Sabby Sabs, and you can find me on Twitter at Sabby Sabs 2.
Fantastic note to end it on. As always, you're more than welcome to be a guest on our show. Thank you so much for joining us this early in the morning. And as always, folks, now more than ever, let us all do what we can to build a better future. And speaking of which, let's just have a humorous note here. I'll just end it on a funny note before I pull up the end credits, and then we'll go on with the rest of our main show. An announcement from Joe Biden.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr.
What's left of my mind, I'm trying to tell you so. I've tried to block the light, I know you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands, I'm trying to keep you close, trying to keep you close. I really want to set you free, but I really want to let you be. And a part of me wished I could set myself aside, just let you take the ride, just chalk the rest up to destiny. I could let you believe that the only restraints in life are the size of your dreams. Let you believe each kid grows up with the world at their feet. When I know too well it's open season, I know they're taking stock and raising stocks and raising stock. And I'm simply not here to sit and watch as you learn the lesson all cogs are taught. Keep your head down and keep to task and just keep on blocking the rest of it all out. Just keep on with the rest of the herd of a million adjacent oblivious workers. The forest unseen for the trees, and the trees unseen for the fallout. No, what's more damning, baby, the truth or the ignorance? Fuck it, I honestly wonder if I see the answer so well. Baby, believe me, well, I know it's scary, I scare myself. If I could find a way out of my head, I would run like hell. I would ditch this body politic, mindless occupant somewhere far from the dismal abyss. In the tranquil crystalline bliss of the beach, I could rest with the rest of the shells. And if anyone asks I'm anywhere else, if I'm really needed, just light the candle, then read the book, and then ring the bell. Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul, this world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth and then demand 1,000-fold. It's full of greedy pigs who'll eat you out of house and home. They'll strip your bank account and sweep you somewhere down the road, and then return to eat your tent and shitty bike you rode. Your bottled water, only shoes and coat and broken phone. Then smiling in your face, they'll tell you that the shelter's closed.
When you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
Hoped you would never find out, knew that you had to know. Pulling what's left of my mind out, trying to tell you so. I tried to block the light, I knew you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands out, trying to keep you close, trying to keep you tarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth and demand 1,000-fold. I tried to block the light, just